What is this contraption?
Well, this piece gets welded into the subframe.
Dang.
So you cut the subframe and you sit this further inside of it than where the factory rack mounts. And then these are just the new rack mounts. So these little couplers will go around these in these notches. Like that one is. That'll hold the steering rack. And then this is a fitting to bypass. The Z has like a weird steering rack where it's like speed sensitive. So the faster you go, I think the heavier it gets. But this will keep it from doing that. It's really hard to turn the wheel at low speed with like the angle kit and like wider tires and everything. So hopefully that'll help with that. And this whole piece.
That's how you do your workouts?
Oh, are you recording? Well, you can see these mounts right here for the steering rack. They're welded right there. Basically, I'm going to cut these mounts off, and then you notch the cross member, and then you sit this back in here like that, and then it moves your steering rack 36 millimeters forward. So you can see right here I have these offset rack spacers. These break all the time in these little teeth that sit on the rack. So this basically just allows me to eliminate that. And then when you're steering right now, since it's moved with this fitting thing, the rack isn't being pushed in and out like evenly. So it's kind of got like a little bit of like tension to it sideways. So then it ends up wearing out your rack, it wears out your seals, it makes steering heavier. So this should like lighten up the steering and make it all smoother. And then you also don't have to worry about this piece breaking.
How'd you go about finding this out, like knowing you need all this?
Well, most of this came with the Parts Shop Max angle kit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you need to offset the rack. But then you run into all those problems. So now you move the rack forward. And I haven't seen many people do this, so we're kind of just winging it. But I'm gonna have to take off this brace, this out, so I gotta hold up the motor because the motor rests on this.
You're gonna be like a certified special 350Z drift builder.
Yeah, that's probably gonna be very useful in the future because now everybody runs 350s. I have to replace these tie rods now because now they have to be longer because this obviously makes this like, I don't even know, 50 mil almost. No, not 50, 40 mil further out. So I have new GK Tech tie rods that are cut to length. Then I'll basically be back to stock and I don't have to worry about this thing breaking every event. One stubborn line. And it's starting to tear.
Where's gonna work? You just what?
No, it's a really short line. It's literally that big. But
that's what she said.
It is a pre-bent line. So I might have to get one from Nissan. It's literally just like crumbling. I feel like I'm just gonna squirt this all over my face. It's like it's just the perfect shape now because that clamp's been on there for so long and it's so dry rotted that it's just stuck on this stupid nipple.
So many suspect words.
I know.
It's just gonna shoot all over my face.
Stuck on the nipple.
Stuck on the nipple. For those of you doing this at home, be aware, this is a very labor-intensive task.
Lots of bolts. No, it's super easy though.
Anytime Greg says it's easy, 90% of the time, it is not that easy. I'm gonna run into
this problem right here of taking the steering shaft out, and this is gonna make it not easy. Okay, this is not gonna work. I don't think, maybe. Did you just shove something up into No, we got two things stuck. Juice is just spraying everywhere.
Oh yeah?
Let's see if we can get something else jammed in there. Well, actually, I don't need to do that.
Jimmy jammed them in there.
I need to actually tap this. so close.
Is it though?
Yeah, it's literally, it moved like a ½ inch. He's real deep in there. Deeper than I thought he would be. Yeah. Success.
Oh, I missed the drop. Damn, what the hell?
What?
Now I see what you mean, how you got it stuck.
Yeah, I had to get to my shaft. That's what I wanted it to do. Open that, and it'll slip through. And then there's a steering column extender. I don't actually know if this goes on that part or maybe this part. Could go there or up on the actual shaft. Now we take the subframe out, and then we'll weld that thing in.
Yo, look at that angle. This is what you get with this
With
setup.
no tie rod.
I wonder how that happened. So you're using that for just to help support it when you drop it down?
I gotta pull the lower control arm out of the subframe, so I'm gonna use this and try to push this side out.
What is technically holding it up right now? Just the sway, I guess just the sway bar?
Yeah, I could do the sway bar or just take the whole lower control arm out, but then I'd be taking that off too, so. I don't know, I'm just gonna try to finagle it out of there. All right, well now you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, because I think it almost sits flush with this. They have a whole jig and everything that you can buy online, but I don't plan on doing this more than once, so I'm not buying a jig.
All right, so to go ahead and break it down so we can.
So basically, I'm gonna cut this mount off, and then I have to cut here and along the top of this to then sit this about there, but here, but this deep. So 36 mil deeper into the subframe, and then they give you these nice new mounts and everything. And then I can cut my new tie rods to length and realign it and not have to run those offset rack spacers. Good? Mm-hmm. All right, so now comes the fun part where I get to cut off these mounts and notch the subframe to get this piece of metal to fit. So basically the piece of metal, this, is gonna sit like flush with this line. So I'm gonna have to cut all the way across here and back up to there. So then this will sit flat with these straight parts of the subframe. So it's gonna take a really long time to cut because it's really thick metal. But first I have to cut these mounts off, all these welds around here.
That's basically what you outlined, I guess, in the yellow.
Yeah, that's just a really rough outline. I just lined up like these bolt holes and then kind of traced it just so I had a better idea of like what I'm gonna be cutting. But I'm just gonna time lapse it because it's probably gonna take 45 minutes at least. Just get a good cutoff wheel because it's thick metal. You're gonna run through a lot of wheels. And then we'll clean up all of the edges, set it all up, make sure it's straight, and then weld it in, and then paint, reinstall. And that's basically just going back through the same steps again. And I don't know if Xavier's gonna be here when I'm putting it back in, so I might just end up time-lapsing everything from here on out. But I'm not gonna talk through this whole thing. I'm gonna put my headphones in and not wear a mask or anything, face mask.
I guess what this is slides through.
This basically just replaces the factory rubber bushes right here. These go through the steering column.
Oh, okay.
Not column, the rack. It all looks real fancy.
Extremely fancy, nice painted.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I don't really know how much is really gonna matter if it's like a millimeter off left to right, because you can always compensate with a tie rod, but I'm gonna get as close as I can.
So what have you encountered, I guess, so far?
Nothing. It was pretty easy, actually. Literally just setting this up to have these two holes line up with the existing holes on the car, and then I just outlined this, and then I cut slightly on the inside to make sure I didn't cut too much, because I'd rather go back and cut it twice than have too much and have to like bridge a gap that big or have it be off. But it has, you can see these slits. This is so you can weld to these. So if you see when you actually set it in, even though it's not fully cut, these are guides, and then you can see the metal through those, and those are guides as well. So it's kind of easy to do. I thought it was gonna be a lot harder than this, but I really just need to cut maybe, I don't know, 1/16 of an inch off of each side, and then it should slip right in there, and then you just weld some beads in here. I probably do a lot of like spot welds or stitch welds around the outside first to make sure it's all good before going and like fully welding it. And that's pretty much it. Then it's just cleaning it up, painting it. I might put some weld through primer on the back of this just to keep it clean. You got the wrong angle, bro. You gotta get this angle. You can see all the nice hardware. This is the finished product of the rack forward spacer. It's not even a spacer, I don't even know what I would call it, but relocation. Yeah, so that's the plate that I welded to the subframe. You can see this used to bolt up into it.
You just cut it?
But I cut it just so it wouldn't hit it when it moved up and down. I might end up just removing this brace entirely, which a lot of people do. But yeah, she looks good. I don't really know what else to say about it. These are custom length, or cut to length GK Tech arms, which is really helpful because with the offset rack spacer, I couldn't run my old tie rods anymore.
What you said? What is it supposed to do again?
Well, basically, it gets rid of my offset rack spacer, and you need the offset rack spacer because if not, then the car will over center, where at like a lot of angle, the angle of the tie rod will actually lock the wheel at full lock.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of what kept it from getting any more angle, or it would be terrible to drive. So now I should be able to get more angle out of it, but I'm gonna have to go and adjust the bump stops that are not in there and a bunch of other stuff. See what is not clearing now.
So how serious of an upgrade is this?
Like how important?
Yeah.
Not very, because you can do the offset rack spacers, but they just break. So the last thing that you want is to be at the track and have a really random part like that you can't get at like an AutoZone. Like you can't get a tie rod. Like you would have to order that.
So it gives you a lot
and they break all the time.
It gives you ease of mind now.
Yeah. And then the main thing that I did was up here there's a little solenoid. You're not really gonna be able to see it. Well, you can kind of see it right over here. You have to look up top through there. That's just a special bolt that PBM makes, and it gets rid of the speed sensitive power steering, which is ridiculously terrible. And I honestly didn't really notice that much. Like I noticed that it got harder to steer like once I added the angle kit, but I thought it was just the offset rack spacer, but it was really just the speed sensitive power steering. It's like, I don't know, it does something weird at low speed. You would think that it'd be lighter at low speed and get heavier as you go. But now when I'm at a stop, before it was like annoying to cut it and make like tight maneuvers at low speed, especially with the welded diff, because it kind of breaks. The more angle you have, the more the diff is locking and the rear wheels are fighting each other. With that now, it's like I can one-hand it like from a stop and go. It's amazing. I think the GoPro might have died when I was doing that, but it's just a housing right here with a connector on it. You just unscrew the housing and then replace it with that bolt, and it just bypasses it. I think they started doing that in 2007 though.
Oh, okay.
So if you've got an 03 to an 06, I'm pretty sure none of those have the speed sensitive power steering, so you're lucky. But
there you go.
if you do have it, get rid of it.
The end.